Hello, everybody. This is Randy Wootton, CEO of Maxio, and your host of SaaS Expert Voices, where we bring the experts in and around the SaaS segment to talk about what's going on today and what's unfolding for tomorrow. I'm super excited to have Nicolas Boucher, who's joining us from Stuttgart, Germany, to talk about AI and finance. Nicolas has an incredible background experience, was in audit at PwC for 7 years. He worked in the corporate sector for 8 years at what would be the French Boeing. We'll talk a little bit about that, his FP&A experience, and he was actually head of finance. And then he did an interesting shift into corporate finance and became a keynote speaker for the past 2 years, and has done a deep dive into AI, specifically tied to finance, and has started something called the AI and Finance Club, which we will talk a little bit about. So, welcome, Nicolas. Thank you for making the time.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. Excited to finally show to people how we can use AI in finance, because that's a topic that is in all of the accountants and corporate finance people and CFOs. And I have the chance to spend my day on this topic. So I'm really happy to share that with you and all of your audience.
I'm very excited. I mean, it is we're talking about AI in general, revolutionizing all the functions, and each function having to figure out what are they using off the shelf versus what are they creating on their own, and how do they actually think about what they do on a daily basis, is very different. It was like night and day, a sea change in terms of how things are going to be done going forward. But before I go there, I just like to go back on your background a little bit, because you have one of these interesting career shifts backgrounds where you started in audit. That's a classic start. And then you went into the corporate sector. Can you talk a little bit about that transition from audit into corporate and what you were hoping to accomplish? And you spent 8 years there. So clearly you had a very successful career. What was it that you got out of that sector? And then we'll talk about your shift into the training sector.
Yeah. So I think as a lot of us who went through the Big Four career and audit career, it was kind of the door after the university and the college to continue to learn, and we didn't know where to go, but we were still eager to learn a lot. And that's what I got from auditing. I could work in Luxembourg and Singapore, many different clients. It was also really fast. You get a really culture of working hard and working well. But then I never wanted to become a partner, and I was interested also, to have an impact for companies. And when you shift from audit, where you look at the past, and you go to FP&A, where you look at the future, is a really big shift. And for me, after I did kind of 3 experiences in audit, because I worked in a cycle of 2 to 3 years, and so I did
Right.
like 3 cycles there. I was done with it with 2 experiences, and also family was also a priority. And with my wife, we both decided to shift to more corporate side, where there is more also work-life balance, even though I was still working hard.
Yeah, I
And I
could.
found a company in Germany, because my wife found a job here, which
Ah,
I already did a training before, internship, when I was younger. And so for me, I was switching, I think, 5 parameters when I moved from audit to corporate. First, I changed jobs. So I was no more an auditor, but I became an FP&A manager. Then I moved country, so from Luxembourg to Germany. Then I moved also language. So you have really in Luxembourg, we're speaking English, French, a bit of German. And then in Germany, I was only talking German. So, and I was not yet fluent in German. And then I also changed the industry, because in Luxembourg and Singapore, I was working more on finance institutions, so insurances and funds. And finally, I changed culture, because like you went from Big Four to a big defense and aerospace company, which is more long term and more
mm,
like kind of almost public companies
hmm.
or institutional companies. So there was a lot of shift. And what I learned is, if people are also in a change process, on all of my career, I learned that you have to wait 6 months.
Mm,
And you should not be like, because you have, like you start, you have the honeymoon phase, everything is new, everything is good.
right.
And then after the 2 3 months, you have like, okay, it's really hard, like you don't have your
Yeah.
routine, you don't have your colleagues, you don't, like, the language is also hard. And you
Yeah.
need to wait 6 months. To make like a point, is it really for me or not?
Yeah.
doing a point earlier and like being not happy is too early. And at 6 months, you actually notice a lot of things becomes natural. Your when you speak, like you don't have to find your words. When you walk across the company, you find the offices, you know your routines, you know what you have to do, you have learned the job. And so that's one advice for everybody: changing jobs, changing countries, changing language, changing maybe culture. Wait 6 months.
That's great. It's funny because I've thought about in my career, there are three variables to think about as you hit those career inflection points: is function, industry, and location. And then you layered in the other two as well, as far as language. I just couldn't even imagine that changing all of those at one point. I had an old boss tell me once that when you're hiring new employees, you need to really wait until 90 days. It's like a broom. After 90 days, the broom is broken in, and you're going to find out what you really got versus what they said they were going to do in the interview. But I think to your point, if you're the individual making the change, giving yourself 6 months to decide was it a good change. I know in this job, I came out of 25 years in go to market. And I'd been CEO twice before, but is always in the go to market category. And, minor shifts between ad tech to MarTech to sales tech, service tech, but all on that go to market front. And now moving to the office of the CFO, I was super deliberate about that in terms of wanting to have a new set of challenges, a new set of intellectual stimulation, and then but see if the patterns of running a company in go to market was similar to running it in the CFO. It's taking me longer than 6 months, Nicholas. I'll tell you that. Like I'm still learning stuff about how you guys in finance think about the world and how we can sell to you. And maybe it's just I'm older and it's taking me longer to learn. But I do think there is this opportunity when you hit these different stages in your career to do that assessment. Are you happy? Are you being challenged? Are you interested in the problem set? Or do you want to mix it up? And you did that again. So you were FP&A, head of finance, and then you decided, well, now I'm going to go off and be a corporate finance trainer and a keynote speaker. What were the ahas and insights you had from your experience either at Tails or at PwC that led you to believe this was your next path?
Yeah, so actually it started even before I worked. I noticed when I was younger, like a teenager, I was getting a lot of energy from coaching young kids at soccer, football.
Mm,
And then at university, I remember the accounting classes that we had. For me, like math and accounting, like I had facilities, but I had a lot of friends it was more difficult for them. So I actually learned thanks to them because I wanted to help them. So I taught them the concept, and thanks to them, I got a good grade because they forced me to learn. And it continued also in audit, when I really love the part when you become senior and manager and you coach people. And what I noticed is this is something I get a lot of energy from. But in my corporate career, there is only like a certain amount of people that you can coach. Like you have a small team of 10 people, then you can maybe expand to other departments. And I didn't get really a mandate to coach that many people. And there is a technology that exists right now where when you can spend the time to explain to one people, actually you can spend the same time and explain to 1 million people at once.
right.
And so I turned to LinkedIn to, yeah, like first because I wanted again the network of PwC and the network of best practices to learn for myself. And then when I noticed that I had also something to share, I started to post. I started to see that I had an impact. And there was really one day where I noticed that I had something different, is that I was using visuals to
Mm,
explain complex problem. And it resonated to a lot of people. And I have like I have the finance cheat sheet. 26 million people saw it. And so
oh my gosh.
when I read this happen, and now I have almost 1 million people on LinkedIn, and across all media is more than 1 million people. So it's crazy to think about that. But I really thought, okay, I cannot. There is something bigger and something also that gives me more energy than just like checking invoices or working on a budget. And I also noticed a lot of people don't have the opportunity that you and me got. Like they were not born in a Western country. They maybe didn't get a proper job, proper education. They didn't maybe get a mentor that helped them. And so I wanted to share that with the maximum amount of people. And for this training, also like digital trainings, corporate trainings, was the opportunity to do that. And like as in working in finance, I was really limited to only finance, but I was my best role in finance when I was part of the management and I could do a lot of things that were not finance. And
Right.
I have like in my mind like a really entrepreneur spirit because my dad was an entrepreneur, and I think I saw that, and I learned so many marketing and entrepreneurship and networking and sales. And for me, it was frustrating not being able to do that. So I think going the entrepreneurship journey helped me uh, get a lot of energy from doing many different things.
Well, that's great. I, in my own background, have been a teacher and a coach, and I can totally appreciate that sense of just fulfillment you get from working with people and helping them to discover something for the first time, as well to your earlier point that in teaching it, you learn it better. I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
right?
One friend told me that like teaching is learning twice,
That's
or
exactly.
learning a
Teaching is
second
learning
time.
twice. Yep,
And
absolutely.
and to come back to the story where like what was really the, I would say, the aha moment was 2 years after my dad passed away. There was like one day, like the energy, it was really his birthday, like not birthday but like his the day of his death.
Mhm.
I don't know how you say that in English, but um and I got like I don't know where it came from, but I really got like a big force to push the button to say to all of my audience, I'm starting to monetize all of my trainings and I'm going to build my first course.
Hmm.
And I just sent that, like it was maybe 500 people, and I thought, okay, if I get 10 people that will buy it, then I will do the course. And I got 10 people, and then after it took me two months to do my first course. But it's crazy sometimes how I don't believe in this kind of things like this. They're spiritual, but it was really on this day another energy that helped me push the button and say, okay, I go for it, and I try it.
As my mother would say, you opened yourself to the universe, and the universe spoke to you. So, well done, and congratulations on all the success you've had. I think this interesting combination of skills and experiences, but also your inclination and your ability to create pictures. Right. I think sometimes finance folks and they sit in Excel, and Excel speaks to them, but it's hard for them to translate Excel into concepts that other people can process. I know with I was an English major, and with my CFO, I'm always like, look, I don't want to look at the model. What I want to see is the pictures and the trends, and help me see, because I can see patterns. It's hard for me to look at numbers and identify the patterns without those images. And so I think the more, pictures worth 1,000 words, but the more when you're doing presentations that you're able to give visual representation of interesting data, like that great, I think of the map of Napoleon's march to Russia, and how that, I'm talking about that one map, and it shows the size of the force at the beginning of the march going all the way
Yeah,
in and
yeah,
then coming back. And
reducing. Yeah.
yeah, and so it captured all these different components in it in terms of size of the army, the weather, and then just the attrition of the army through death and starvation. But it was a massive amalgamation of data represented in a really compelling way, and that picture has stayed with us for 200 years or whatever it's been. So
And
your
you know that
ability to bring that together is really extraordinary. And so
and you know
now you take.
that actually there's really science behind that, especially now that all of us in finance, we don't have a problem anymore to have enough data. Like data is there,
Right.
we get a lot of data. And so the problem is we pass through the data to the management and then we don't help. And there is a science that says that the brain registers and captures an image 60,000 times faster
Mm.
than a word or a figure.
Hmm.
So if you really want to, like, if you, an advice for everybody working in finance and wanting a bit like to be noticed by the management, like send the graph, like thinking about the Napoleon map, send the graph that the management will remember, and they will, when they talk to you, say, oh yeah, like this graph, like this trend, like this is what will stick, not a long email, not a nice report. The graph will stick.
Absolutely. My CFO does our all hands. And one of the things he does on his own, but reinforce is draw circles around the numbers that you want to talk about, and
Yeah,
draw lines showing it's going up to the right, and then everyone will see all the different things and get it, it's going in the right direction, or
exactly.
it's not going in the right direction. So that's great. And so then you're training people on FP&A in particular, and how to represent business and participate in conversations at the management level. And then the AI revolution takes off. What was it? I mean, everyone's talking about AI today, right? It's almost passe. But what was it that you saw with this opportunity as a finance professional and being at this intersection of FP&A and training, and just your natural inclination to want to go deep dive into this, because you've been in it for several years now, but even before it became popular. So what was it that attracted you to it? And then we'll talk about the use cases that you're seeing that are most applicable in finance today.
Yeah, so all of my career, I really use technology to leverage my work, to be faster, but also provide more value. And instead of spending hours and hours like stuck on a file, like trying to automate to be faster and get home early to have fun. So I already saw technology like this, and I'm really curious always on where is the technology going and how can we use it for ourselves, for work. And when on November 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT, so the version that everybody knows now, but in November 2022, I think I got the access one day after it was released.
Wow.
And when I got access to that, you know how it felt, Randy? It felt like when you're a kid and you get this video game at Christmas from your parents, or this Barbie house that you cannot stop playing with this. And so I got access to this, and I was like, wow, like this thing is crazy. You can do so much things. And I felt that somebody was going to take away from me this new toy, and that it was too good to be true.
Hmm.
So I was just like day and night, like trying everything that was coming to my mind, and then first for myself, then for business, then also for my content. And I started also to research if somebody else was looking at how to do it, to use it for business, because a lot of people were using it to write poem to their wife, or to write a rap song in the style of Mozart. But nobody was really, I think, at the beginning picking up what does it mean for business.
Hmm.
And when I did my research, I didn't find anything. So I was thinking, okay, if nobody is going to do it, I'm going to spend a lot of time and try, and also like connect, because as an auditor and working in a big corporation in different roles, I saw a lot of different roles in finance, but also other departments. And so I know what in finance we need and where we spend our time. And so I tried, okay, how can you use it to write a procedure? How can you use it to help yourself with your Excel file? How do you use it to create scenarios? How do you use it to help you create a cash action plan? How do you use it if you want to write a code for a program, even if you are not a coder? And really quickly, the more I was training, the more I was documenting that. And in February 2023, I launched a PDF guide that was sold, I think, 4,000 times. And now I helped, I think, in total 5,000 people with my courses, with my workshops, with my webinars. I help companies like Mercedes-Benz, KPMG, like training their teams. And my goal really is, I believe in finance, we are the champions of Excel. We are the champions of
Right.
ERP. We are even like
Hmm.
often really good at PowerPoint and Power BI, and some of us VBA and Python. And I do believe that we can be that good and be the champions of business in AI. And I like, my goal is to bring that to people, because we have the, like we have the culture of using technology for our job. And with AI, there is a lot of data that we can make sense of. And I think finance is ready for to use AI.
I think you're onto something in terms of finance are probably the most fluent in data, business data, right? Because they use the ERP systems and they're grinding all that out, and they're presenting the reports for the audit, et cetera. And so then the question is, can they take the leap to using a tool that's more black box, where they have to trust that there isn't going to be generated uh, scenarios that aren't rooted in the reality. I think one of the things
Yeah.
when I talk to CFOs is why they like Excel is they can look at the specific cell and say, I saw that number and I can trace it when even though I have 50 tabs open, I can go for my summary and drop through down into all the other tabs. And when I've talked to CFOs so far, it's been, gosh, I just don't know if I can trust the output of the model. So the
So
hallucinations. So how have you addressed that to make people feel comfortable?
so at the beginning, first it was anyway. Each time you were trying to do even the most simplest calculations, you could see from your eyes that there was a problem. That the model that we are all using, so the generative AI models, are by definition generating something, so creating, not calculating. So it will give you the most probable output based on your input. And if you start like giving a lot of numbers, it's not an Excel file that you have in front of you, it's just a model that will try to give you the best answer. And because of this, you cannot rely on the computation because it's not made to compute. So once you have understood that the model is not there to compute, it's actually there to help you compute. It's there because it knows, okay, if you want to do a cohort analysis on your SaaS sales, well, here are the 3 or 4 methods that you could do. You could do maybe a cohort by months. You could do a cohort by type of products or by that type of promotion. And then it will explain you how to run that either in your Excel file or if you have a lot of data in Python. And then while you do that, you are not giving any confidential data. You are just
Mhm.
explaining your problem. Like if we two meet on a barbecue on Sunday, we are two competitors, but we are friends since a long time and we work as CFO. And I can ask you, like, how do you do your cohort analysis, Randy? And then you can explain me how to do it without giving me any confidential information. And then I go back after this talk smarter. And then I will try it on my own data and I will get the value out of it because now I have a guidance on how to do it. And on top, then it's like I talk after to my best friend who is expert in Excel. And I'm like, how can I do that in Excel? Because I have a really hard time. And then ChatGPT or Gemini will do that as well. They will tell you, okay, that's how you do a heat map in Excel because you have to do a lot of conditional formatting. And then after you talk about your best friend who is really good at storytelling, and then okay, how can I present that to my management because it's a lot of data, and then you will also get a, a lot of help on this, and you have all of this in a chatbot which has all of these skills, but you can only make sense of it when you ask the good question
Right.
and that you also challenge it and you interpret it and you use it in your own environment.
That great advice. Have you also found one of the things we had someone who does this for marketing come in and train our marketing team on how to use AI, and it was a woman, and she said um, to say please and thank you. That
Yeah, I do
the
that just like intuitively because it's like chatting with a friend, or chatting with your team. You always say please or thanks, so it's just not changing your language because it's just like a chat open and doesn't really matter. Yeah, adding please doesn't hurt.
No, but what she said was, it in fact helps because the AI is trained on language, and the people are saying please and thank you to your point in their language and the way they interact with each other, and so it's more responsive. I thought it was baloney, but she actually said, no, 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 it plays,
Well, thank you is like
pays to play. So
thank you is a confirmation to the model that the answer is really what you expected.
yeah,
Rather than if you say,
yes.
oh, I'm not too sure, then it will like just generate another answer to please you because the model always want to please you.
Yeah, and that was the other thing she said is like, tell them that it's really, really important. You're doing a board presentation. You got to do it right. Give it the extra college try, and it'll come back with yet another answer. And so I do think there's this interesting dynamic of it is a machine, but you relate because it's trained on human relationships. You interact with it in a human way. It's been
A,
it's been
a tip on
fascinating.
that. So what you can do if you get an answer let's imagine you ask help to get a cash action plan. First, because cash action plan is so wide, you can do so many things, and you are limited by the context window. So meaning how much output you can get from the model. Then you will only get like a really broad cash action plan, which if you have experience, you are thinking, I don't learn anything here. It's not going to help me. But the technique is to go down like 2 to 3 levels until you get something super practical. But once you get something that you want to use, then you can ask ChatGPT or Gemini, review your output, and rate yourself from 0 to 10 on how much practical it is and how much specific maybe to a SaaS company it is. And then it will give you an answer saying, oh, I think it's at 6 on 10 or 7 on 10. And then specific to SaaS, maybe only 3 to 10 because it didn't know until now that it was a SaaS. And then you ask, okay, change your answer that you get a 10 on both. And that is a way like to really like 2x or 10x the output you get, because then on these two dimension, which is practicality and SaaS specifics, it will give you really a much more practical and specific answer.
Interesting. Well, with that, let's segue into some of the use cases. We have 5. We'll see how many we can get through. This was based on the pre-brief we talked about and the ones that you thought were going to be most relevant for finance and accounting. Let's start with automated invoice processing and accounts payable. Help us understand how you think about AI helping in that process to drive efficiency and effectiveness.
Yeah. So now we are talking about AI and not generative AI anymore.
Right.
So in AI, you have a lot of different technologies, and one of them is OCR, so optical character recognition, meaning that if you give an image to AI, and that's something that we have already since a year. So you didn't have to wait ChatGPT for this because it's not connected. But you know, when on your phone or even when you scan a PDF, it can recognize the text. Well, that's the OCR. So imagine now a lot of companies and a lot of accounting departments, for years, they have gotten an invoice on like per mail. Then somebody will have that on their table and then process that directly in the ERP. Well, the first step is to say, okay, I can scan the invoice and let all of the fields already in a pre-formatted table, where after the human will say, oh, when you see here invoice number, then I map it to my ERP invoice number. When you see invoice amount, I map it to invoice amount. So that was already existing the last 10 years, which is something where you always needed a human interaction for the first invoice. Then after, when the same invoice was coming back, then the model was already trained to understand this invoice. So then it was automated and then processed. Then when you start receiving that by email instead of mail, then you don't even need somebody to scan it. You process it directly. But now, thanks to NLP, so NLP is natural language processing, meaning what we do with ChatGPT, meaning it understands the words. So you don't need a human explaining that when you see invoice number, you have to map it in the ERP with invoice number, because then the NLP technology will recognize and see and say, okay, at 99.9999%, if I see invoice number, I can map it to invoice number in my ERP. And now, thanks to that, you also almost don't need any humans in the loop. And you can do that not only on invoice, but on receipt. So imagine all of these mini receipts that are really hard to read, sometimes like also handwritten or in different languages. Because now you have also a lot of transformers that will understand Chinese. And if somebody is going to China and going after like on a late night with their clients and inviting them on I would say like on a ladies bar or something like this, well, maybe the accountant will not notice that is a ladies bar because he will just like book it. But the tool will recognize it, because then he will see, okay, like based on the name or based on my research on internet, I see that is not in line with the expense policy, so I deny it. And that's also how you can process things faster, uh, avoid to spend money on things you should not spend. And also, then the finance team is not there to do mundane tasks, but more focused on the problems. And that's also for everybody just better, because you do work on better tasks than tasks that nobody was interested to do before.
I think you're making two really well, a couple interesting points. One is people use AI and they mean lots of different things and under the category broadly of machine learning. And my first company back in 2015, I joined, it was part of the first generation of AI where we were using logistic regression analysis, building models. But it took us, we had 30 data engineers, data scientists that were building the models. And then we had a set of folks that were working with customers as well. And so you had this level of abstraction between the user of the model and the model. And so what's happened now with the generative AI is people can interact with it directly. But it also, you have these other technologies that would have been out there like OCR, which are now becoming more accessible because of NLP and just the interface. You had mentioned a couple of companies, I think, for this specific use case that you would recommend or you're familiar with. One was AppZen, and the other one was Glean AI. Do you want to
Yeah.
talk at all about those or any other ones that you would say, hey, if you wanted to automate invoice processing and accounts payable, here are a couple of firms to take a look at?
Yeah. So Abzen, for example, was the example I just gave you about this receipt where you go in China, somebody
Yeah.
goes in China, and so they have their own model where they will read and train the model on your own expenses policies, and then will flag everything or refuse everything that is not part of the expense policies. And they have also been in the market since longer than ChatGPT. So they are not like all of these ChatGPT wrapper that pretend to be AI, but they are just like connect themselves to ChatGPT and get the output from ChatGPT. Glean AI, the advantage is that they read everything that is on the invoice.
Mm.
So I don't know if you have experienced that, but when there is a problem with one invoice, or when costs increase, or when you want to search for cost reductions, then your general ledger is not enough.
Mm.
You have to open the invoice and like start to compare invoices over the last 2 years and start to go into the details. And for this, somebody is opening the either first searching for the invoice, then opening it, then writing all of these details in Excel, and then comparing if we are not like over consuming the service, or if we don't get an increase of price that we didn't ask, to challenge the invoice. With Glean AI, it's again using the OCR recognition to understand the detail of the invoice and then map that months after months and create an insight and then flag also the problems and help people to validate invoice, because everything is there. They don't have to go through the 30 pages of the invoice. Already the summary will be on the report from Glean AI. And the third one, if you are a small company or like medium size and you don't know like which tool to use, but you use something either like Microsoft Azure or Google, they already have those model where you just connect your folder with your PDFs, and they have models that for Microsoft Azure is called document intelligence, and everything is already made where you just choose the option invoice or choose the option receipt, and then it will extract directly all of the relevant information that are typically on invoice, because it's trained on so many invoices that it will recognize it. And the advantage is you don't need an IT team for this. You can, with like a, I would say, an appetite for technology, you can do that in 2 hours, even if you
Wow.
are not like a tech person. And that's really removes the barrier of entry for a lot of people to go from I have no process of digitalizing my invoice to one afternoon after, okay, like I start to have all of my invoices in a flat table. Then the next step is how can I connect that to my ERP? And then with if you have an ERP with a easy API, then you just like transfer this flat table with the API, and it books for you all of the expenses in the ERP or in the accounting system.
Well, maybe that's a good lead into one of the other use cases. We'll probably just get through one more is real-time financial reporting and analysis. So if you start out with processing the invoices in the accounts payable and you're able to automate that process and then have it go to the ERP, what are you seeing in terms of AI that are generating real-time financial reports, offering up-to-date insights into revenue, expenses, and profitability?
Yeah, so like how until now you have your revenue details in in another other ledger, and FP&A has to make sense of it, make reconciliation, and then you need like 2 or 3 days to understand what are the sales you did in the details and why did you have variances. And now you have tools like puzzle.io, which is done by Sasha Orloff, who he started with the premises that he's not going to change companies' subledgers, because either your subledger are in the right tools or not. And if they are not, then he just says, okay, I'm not going to work with you. So he works with startups. And what he does is he says, okay, we want 4 conditions. The first, that you are in a bank where we have the API. So like Mercury, or I think there are like a group of banks that you can have easy API. So like this, the cash rec is super easy and everything is uploaded and in real time inside your accounting system. The second one is on payroll. So with Gusto, they also have an API, and you get real-time information on your biggest expense, which is salaries, because 80% of our expenses for most of the companies are headcounts and salaries. And then they have on payables, they have something connection with Ramp. And then the last one on revenue, connection with Stripe. So with all of these 4 subledgers, then they can create real-time accounting and all of the SaaS KPIs that everybody needs and are calculating on an Excel file. They do that like straight away when they integrate the 4 subledgers. And that's on top of that, they use AI for categorizations and to help also generate insights. But it's mostly first the value in the integrations, and that's
Got it.
again
I would
like
be
AI is not solving everything. It's first, do you have your data, and then AI can help in the mapping, can help in flagging errors, but it's mostly like, do you have the data? Uh, do you have the right data? And then can you map them through integrations where nobody is touching anything, is just coded once and coded the right way that you can get value from it.
Well, I was going to say I'd be remiss if I just didn't do the Maxio advertisement here, because that Maxio is a revenue recognition, revenue management system. And so, to your point, people that are trying to create the finance tech stack of the future, where they do connect via APIs, but then sitting between the CRM and the general ledger to pull all that data together to do the revenue recognition, and then for SaaS companies in particular to provide the output in terms of the operating metrics, your gross retention, your net retention, your MRR roll forward, all those different components. So I got to talk to this guy at Puzzle AI. We'll cover off on that
Yeah,
separately. But so we're kind of bumping up against time, and I wanted to get through these other ones. So maybe we'll do a V2 of this, Nicholas, if you have time. But
sure.
just to close it out for our audience, love to talk about the speed round. So the speed round, there are 3 questions. What's your favorite metric and why? What's your favorite book? It could be business or personal, and why? And then your favorite influencer, someone you're following or you think is, as you're either in the area of AI or in the area of finance, that you think is really writing original content versus just putting a spin on other stuff. So, favorite metric. What's your favorite metric?
Well, I like to understand in a company what is the salary by headcount.
Ah,
The salary,
okay.
sorry, the revenue by headcount. Revenue
Okay.
by headcount, because it helps me understand if the company has a good margin or not. Because usually either, and not a lot of companies are trading companies. So if we forget that, a lot of companies, like, the value is created by the people. And so revenue by headcount, I think, is a good indicator to see if the company is profitable or not. Because usually people will tell you the revenue, they will, and headcounts you can find out everywhere, but you will never know about the EBIT. So it's a good way to feel if the company is profitable or not. And then um, what I also like is for people themselves. In my team, often I was explaining them, like, look at how much value you need to generate. If you look at your salary and the revenue, like, if you get a salary of 100 and you have to think about all of the other costs, then it means that you need to generate 150 or 200 as value. So to really, like, to make that people stick that to themselves and feel that they are part of the equation. Because if not, everything is numbers for people that they cannot touch it. But if you tell them, okay, if you were alone, you have to to create 150 or 200,000 value to cover your salary.
That's great. I know that in my previous incarnation as CEOs, always had a focus on ARR per headcount or ARR per FTE. So almost like a proxy for revenue. It's a little bit different. But working for a PE company, they have been laser focused on cost per FTE. And how do you think about creating more efficiencies that drives the EBITDA? Because to your point,
Mhm.
such a large percentage of the costs are salaries. And so how do you think about that? And I think in this hybrid world now where people can work anywhere, it does create opportunities. And AI also, if you're adding augmentation, I know I've seen slides going around among CEOs I talk to that investing firms, VCs, and PEs are expecting 30% efficiency starting next year, driven by AI augmentation. And so, this idea of how much leverage are you getting from AI is going to be critically important for people's success going forward. Okay, so that was the metric. Favorite book?
So I have to go something a bit non-business and
Okay.
non-finance, but still help us understand the word is Sapiens.
Oh, sure. Right. Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think when I read it, first it's fun to read, even if it's
Yeah.
big, but you can stop at any time and come back.
Yeah.
And I think it teaches so much about why are we what we are today and what happened before.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to step back and make sense of everything that is happening right now, and or
I,
even like
awesome.
personally as a person.
Did you read the follow-on? It's by
Homo Deus.
Yovai Noah Harari, I
Yeah,
think, and then
yeah. I think it's Homos Deus or something like this.
yeah, something
I
like
didn't
that.
like
Yeah, yeah,
this.
yeah. Homo Deus. You're exactly right. I didn't read that one, but Sapiens
Yeah,
was one of those ones. I can't remember when it came out, but it's
yeah. No,
absolutely
I didn't like the second
transformational.
one. Yeah, I didn't like the Homos Deus because
Ah,
I think it was like going on something where, yeah, it was not that impacting, and
ah.
but yeah, the first one was so
Okay,
good that
Sapiens.
I
Yeah,
had also high expectations.
yeah. And so I just looked it up quickly. It was published in Israel in uh, 2011, and then came out in 2014. So it's been 10 years, which is hard to
Yeah,
believe. But yeah, I've got down. This is a good one. Maybe I pull that back up for a summer read because, to your point, it was really just eye opening when I read it. Okay, favorite influencer. So someone you think is that you like to read in the morning. You wake up in the morning, you grab your cup of coffee, and who are you reading that's providing interesting ideas and insights?
yeah. So it's less reading but more watching.
Okay, watching
There are
then.
two person a bit in the same area as Scott Galloway,
Of course, great, awesome.
because he has a really spiky point of view, and you might accept or not what he says, but I really
Yeah,
like that he has his own point of view,
yeah,
especially like on two things, like basically like technology is not good for everything, and
yep,
that we all let TikTok coming into our worlds, but TikTok is managed by Chinese. So,
yeah.
and also like on, yeah, like I think it's more American focused, but on the youth. Um, the second one is, I guess not a lot of people know him, is Sean Kanongo.
How do you spell the
Uh,
last name?
yeah, so Kanungo, and I talked to
Okay.
him. So it's a guy who is doing a lot of keynotes, and he has a really like spectacular style of doing keynotes
Hmm.
on innovations.
Okay.
And you need to look, like his keynotes are, I think, the best in terms of experience. And I love the fact that he makes both, uh, I would say, like both key key results with his keynotes. First, learning, so you learn something and you reflect. But second is also really entertaining.
Hmm.
And for me, who is also doing keynotes, is I see that as an example and a path to follow. That if you take time of people, if you are in front of people digitally or live, and even now in this podcast, if you take 1 hour of 100 people or 1 hour of 1,000 people, then you owe to the people that they have fun and that they learn something. And for this, I think you have to work for that and you have to be conscious about this. And that's why I really like those two, Scott Galloway and Sean Kanango, because they have each in their own style great learnings for me, but also for everybody who is just watching them. They are really entertaining and insightful.
Wow, I could not think of a better way to wrap this episode because that's our ambition. I don't know if we will achieve it, but it would have not been because of you because you did a great job in sharing some insights in terms of your background and experience and what you've seen unfolding with AI and then specific use cases. So thank you, Nicolas, for your time. It's really been a great pleasure.
Thank you, Randy, and call to action to all of the audience.
Oh, that's right.
If
Yeah, go ahead.
you learn something today, like share it around, because I think if you are listening to that, it means already you are in the top 1%, and you owe to the others to bring them with us to the learning
Right.
path, because AI is going super fast, and there are some people that are maybe either not as lucky or not, maybe don't see that, but you need to bring them with us and teach them and show them the value of it and also the risk and limitations.
Right. And so then, sorry about that. The call to action, people can find you on LinkedIn. They can join the AI and Finance Club, where if they wanted to learn more about what's happening in AI and the intersection of finance, you have a ton of materials there they can access and they can be part of the conversation. And to your point, they can pay it forward and help this, all of us get better together.
Exactly. Yeah. The my I just wanted, if people don't want to join or not, it's not my intention for this podcast. I really want to teach, but in the AI Finance Club, it's really the place where, if you are a CFO, if you are a fractional CFO, if you or just touch anything about finance and want to learn, but you feel that alone is not enough because it takes a lot of time, then you can use me, you can use the experts that are with me, because we do the work, and then you just get like every week just something you have to consume in 5 to 15 minutes. And one time per month we also meet in a masterclass where we can learn from each other and I bring experts. And I found that was the best way to learn, because we all come from different backgrounds. A lot of people have to bring also, and they bring their insight, but all of the questions that we receive, if we answer them, then everybody benefit from it, and
That's
it's
great.
great to learn together.
That's great. All right. Well, then that's where we'll wrap. Thank you, Nicolas, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.